Consultation.
It will be the second time the High Court will be handling a case over the printing of ballot papers. And in both cases, one firm, Dubai-based Al Ghurair, is at the center of controversy. Through an open tender, the firm in October last year won the tender for the printing of ballot papers. But the then Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, CORD, challenged the award of the tender at the Public Procurement Administrative Review Board and later at the High Court, which in December 2016 nullified the tender. The IEBC made a second attempt at procuring ballot papers through restricted tender, but the procurement process was challenged even before the tender was awarded. The Public Procurement Administrative Review Board last month ordered for a retender. The IEBC then settled for direct procurement in its third procurement attempt, again awarding the 2.5 billion shilling tender to Al Ghurair on the 8th of this month. But NASA, which claims that Al Ghurair has close ties with senior Jubilee officials who influenced the award of the tender, wants it cancelled.
Wanasukuma IEBC nasukuma tu. Si ati wanapenda. Wanasukuma tu mpaka muende Dubai. Mpaka tuende Dubai. Nasema hatuendi Dubai.
As Jubilee, we want the IEBC to award the contract for printing of ballot papers to any company. Hata wakitaka kupatia kampuni ya Spectre ya Raila Odinga wapatie.
The IEBC is seeking to have the suit by NASA dismissed. In documents filed in court, the electoral body argues that the award of the tender was above board and there is no evidence to support allegations of lack of integrity and impartiality. Al Ghurair argues that the firm is different from the one whose officials met President Uhuru Kenyatta and that it has already started printing ballot papers. The IEBC has ruled out the cancellation of the tender.
So far, there's nothing. There's just mere allegations being peddled and the contract has already been signed.
The IEBC chair says cancellation of the tender to print some 120 million ballot papers would have huge financial implications and disrupt Kenya's preparedness for the polls. It is now 8 months since the first ballot paper printing tender was awarded. The IEBC has had to revise its election countdown schedule, with the judiciary taking part of the blame.
We are not giving directions to the judiciary on what to do. But the judiciary should be conscious of the fact that the timelines are now too restricted to be interfered with.
The courts are still dealing with election-related cases, including 16 from party primaries, which have seen the IEBC put on hold the presentation of names of candidates from disputed electoral areas for printing and gazettement. Friday will see top lawyers, among them James Orengo, Fred Ngatia, Wawero Gatonye and Admin Nasir Abdullahi, put their best arguments forward before a 3-judge bench made up of Justice Joel Ngugi, Justice George Odunga and Justice J.J. Mativo. NASA won a case on the tallying and announcement of presidential election results after the Court of Appeal ruled that presidential results announced in constituencies are final. The coalition will be hoping for a second election-related case victory as the IEBC hopes for a judgment in its favor. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Many thanks, Rita Tinida, for that. Of course, that is our biggest story, our big story this morning, and we're going to keenly follow for you. And Timothy Otieno is going to join us shortly from the courts and tell us what to expect, perhaps, from that hearing. And let's cross over to a different story now. The Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentist Union, well known as KMPDU, this morning signed a collective bargaining agreement with the government, bringing to an end a protracted dispute over salaries and remuneration for doctors. Meanwhile, the Council of Governors has called for a meeting with the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers to avert a possible strike, which was set to begin tomorrow, that is July 1st. Of course, that's another big story that we are keenly following for you. This after the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacist and Dentist Union, that is KMPDU, signed a deal, that is a collective bargaining agreement with the government. Our in-house specialist on health matters, Dr. Mercy Korir, is going to join us shortly and tell us more on that. But first, Nick Wambua is at the Ministry of Health, and he had been, on this story for the longest time possible. Now, Nick, can you perhaps tell us what really transpired and perhaps what this deal means for the health workers in the country?
Thank you very much, Hassan. The fact is that right now, the KMPD officials were here early this morning together with the Ministry of Health. That is the Ministry of Health, CS, that is Dr. Cleopa Mailu, whereby they have now put pen to paper on the agreed CBA that is now ready for the doctors. That means that as a Ministry of Health, as a national government, then they have now agreed to the terms that the doctors were requesting for when they went for the strike since last year, December. So what we have right now is that the doctors are waiting to have a meeting tomorrow whereby they will be addressing the media. Currently, what they've done is that they have not been able to address the media since Cleopa Mailu was rushing to go somewhere, but then they say that they could not address the media without the minister. But tomorrow they'll be addressing the same issue at the Crown Plaza early in the morning. And what they're saying is that what is remaining now is that they are going to be having the governors or the county government also put pen to paper the same CBM or the same agreement. That means that from there, then they'll be okay to go. They'll have achieved what they wanted in the CBA. And Hassan, what I can tell you still is that we don't have the copy of the CBA, so we still do not know what are the terms. They have said that they are going to make copies and then distribute them, but then they could not or they could not disclose the original copy of the document, saying that they'll be releasing it later in the day. So currently what they're saying is that the job groups are all defined, they are sorted, and they have their allowances. They report to the government all sorted by the national government. Now what is remaining is the county government, whereby they'll be having a discussion later on.
Nick, perhaps one final question. We've known the KMPD officials to be very vocal. We've seen them, last year, very vocal about these issues to do with the strike, but we've not yet seen them come out openly and talk about the CBA. Does it mean they're not satisfied?
From the look of things, Hassan, is that what they are, as they told us, but off camera, is that they are satisfied with what they have. It is more improved than what they had before. So just to say that they are more satisfied than they had before been aggrieved. But now they're saying that what they have, because of the Ministry of Health through the CS has been able to agree with them, what they have is sufficient to them, and it is going to solve the doctors. Now, what is remaining is the county government. If they do not agree, then we do not know what is going to take place after that. But then it is definite that it is most likely that the county government will not be able to deny the CBA, or will not refuse to put pen to paper, that is a CBA, to mean that right now what they have is satisfactory to them.
Many thanks, Nick, for that. That is our reporter, Nick Wambua, coming to us all the way from the Ministry of Health, where the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacist and Dentist Union, well known as KMPDU, we're told have just signed a collective bargaining agreement with the Council of Governors. Our in-house specialist on health matters, once again, Dr. Mercy Korir, is going to join us shortly and tell us more on what that CBA is all about. And perhaps she might take us through some of the details or content of that CBA. And the main question, will that CBA bring to an end the protracted, back and forth battle between the health workers and the government? Let's cross over to Congo, where gunfire rang out near a small jail in the Democratic Republic of Congo's capital, Kinshasa, on Thursday afternoon, prompting the deployment of a heavy army presence at the site. Now, the army and police surrounded the jail in the Matonge neighborhood of Kinshasa. The cause of the gunfire was not clear. Thousands of inmates have escaped from jails this year in Congo, including about 4,000 from the capital, Kinshasa's main high-security prison last month. Attackers killed a police officer during the raid. Now, people from 6 mainly Muslim countries and all refugees now face tougher U.S. entry due to President Donald Trump's controversial travel ban. Now, it means people without close family or business relationships in the U.S. could be denied visas and barred entry. Now, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nephews and nieces are not considered to be bona fide relations. The rules apply to people in Iran, Libya, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, as well as Yemen, and all the refugees there. Moments before the ban began, it emerged that the state of Hawaii had asked a federal judge for clarification. It has in the past accused the U.S. government of violating the Supreme Court's instructions by improperly excluding people. Earlier this week, the Supreme Court partially upheld the ban, lifting injunctions that had halted one of the president's key policies.
We've been, in Turkey, it's so extreme. The measures are so extreme. The security measures are a lot more extreme than here. Therefore, I feel like civil liberties is secondary to our comfort. I'm used to that. As an American, when I put my American hat on, I'm not used to that. No, I definitely feel we're being violated.
Most Muslims feel that this isn't the best way to promote peace and to stop terrorism, which we all want to do. I mean, Muslims are the ones who are suffering the most from terrorism. So, but we respect whatever America chooses to do. I hope that America will think about peace and harmony as the goal.
But now that fiancés are allowed, they've really narrowed the scope of what a bona fide is, which they should not have done. And it just seems that this administration can never leave good enough alone. They should have just let it go. So Hawaii, I guess, has already filed a motion. There's a potential stay out of Hawaii already. So we feel like we're going to keep winning, to be honest. And we're not going to get sick of winning.
You don't see the protests here today, but the protests have already done the damage to this horrible executive order. So, we're just here to make sure that what the Supreme Court said is being followed. Everything seems pretty calm. So we can do that with a few dozen people, but it's a lot different. But it's because of all those people that came originally.
Well, while Donald Trump is busy expelling Muslims and refugees out of the U.S., in Uganda, a fundraising summit for the refugees is underway, but it failed to meet its initial target of $2 billion for the next 12 months. The summit was organized by the Ugandan government and the United Nations to raise funds and draw attention to Uganda's refugee crisis, which is the fastest growing in the world. Now, the country is now the 3rd largest refugee hosting country in the world, with almost 1 million South Sudanese who are fleeing ongoing violence in the world's youngest country. Here's a report packaged by our producer, Eddie Kavai.
Famine, economic collapse and years of fighting have forced people out of South Sudan faster than from any other nation on the planet. The stream of arrivals, whose average is 2,800 each day, has begun to take a toll on the country South Sudan's neighbor, Uganda. The international community pledged $358 million at a fundraising summit on Friday to help Uganda tackle the world's fastest growing refugee crisis.
On the first day, $358 million. And other people are saying, no, we shall think about it, we shall do more. I think this is real.
Organizers had hoped that the meeting in the central city of Entebbe would raise at least $2 billion to help nearly 1 million South Sudanese fleeing civil war. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the pledges were a good thing, but more was needed.
I think it is a very good start, but we cannot stop. We need to go on. And several of the countries today said that they were not able to pledge now, but they will be announcing in the next few weeks additional amounts. So I think we can congratulate Uganda and the rest of Uganda, because this initiative is, in my opinion, a success.
On Thursday, Antonio visited refugee camps in the northern Uganda, close to the South Sudan border, which have popped up over the last year, quickly becoming the largest in the world.
Now, IGAD, the African Union, and the UN totally aligned with the same very clear position.
Civil war broke out in 2013 after President Salva Kiir accused his rival and former Deputy Riek Machar of plotting a coup against him. In August 2015, a peace deal was signed, but it collapsed in July last year when fighting broke out in Juba. It was this fighting that led to the biggest exodus of some 743,000 South Sudanese arriving in Uganda since July 2016. The UN estimates that another 500,000 South Sudanese will arrive in Uganda this year. The summit did not include discussions on how to end the ongoing fighting, but Antonio insisted that the violence should stop. Eddie Kavai, KTN News.
That was our producer there, Eddie Kavai, reporting from Uganda. Let me now take you back to the U.S., where there is another developing story, and the Senate Republicans are working on a plan for repealing Barack Obama's signature health reforms, but a non-partisan budget focus says it will leave 22 million more Americans uninsured by 2026.
As dawn breaks, more people join the line, hoping they're early enough to be one of those seen at a free clinic in Southern Virginia. Despite the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, slightly over 11% of the American population still have no insurance.
Yeah, I guess it's helped a lot of people, but it didn't help me out now.
Few of those lining up have much hope that things will get better for them under the Republicans' health care plan.
Now anybody can get insurance. So if they're going to replace it with something that everybody can't get, then I don't think it's going to help.
But it doesn't sound like it's going to be a great thing for everyone. And in my opinion, if we're going to make some changes, change is supposed to be for the better, right? So maybe we need to look at that thing again.
In 2015, remote area medical saw more than 28,000 patients in the United States. Most come for dental or vision checkups, services that are rarely covered by insurance, even after Obamacare came in.
We didn't see a lot of change, really. We would have been happy to be put out of business, but the reality is that it really didn't change things a whole lot. So hopefully down the road we'll have something that they don't need us.
Under the proposed legislation, funding for Medicaid, a government healthcare program for low-income and disabled people, will be slashed, forcing states to implement stricter criteria for coverage. But most of the patients here already can't afford annual checkups and preventative care, despite working full-time.
I'm surprised myself at how many of the participants say, yes, I'm working full-time, but they still don't have any insurance. I think that health care is a right, and I hope that we are able to have an improved health care system for the people so there are not so many people that are left out.
The proposed Senate bill could leave 22 million more Americans uninsured, but pushback in the Senate has so far stalled the vote, leaving Republicans scrambling to win more support.
Gambia, Chinese-owned fish mill factory known as Golden Lead has agreed to an out-of-court settlement in a case where it was facing charges of discharging wastewater into the sea. Now, the factory also faced charges of polluting the environment, withholding information about their waste management and failure to keep track of its activities along Gambia's coast.
The dispute started in May when thousands of dead fish washed up on the beach in Gunju, a small fishing town in the southwest of the country. The water in the nearby lagoon in Bolong-Fenyo Wildlife Reserve also turned red overnight. Initially, environmentalists were up in arms because they thought effluent waste from the Golden Leads factory had killed the fish, only to discover that they had been dumped there by Gambian and Senegalese fishermen unable to sell their catch to the fish mill makers.
Yeah, because of the Chinese people call them and give them money because they cannot buy all. And the fish, they are already dead. So where you can, you will drop them. But I blame, because of this, all blame is these people. Or they are the people who call them to bring in more fish. They are the one who request. So why you cannot buy all? If you cannot request all, why you call all?
After a few days, the water regained most of its natural color, but tests found out it was still unsafe. Badara Bajo from the Gunju Environmental Protection and Development Group said he convinced the government to give it a protected status a first in the country.
Really mad. I'm really mad, and I'm very much uncomfortable because we spend a lot of energy, lots of time for so many years, and to see that arriving at an end point within a second is just devastating. It's just driving us crazy.
And now Gambia's National Environmental Agency has accepted an out-of-court settlement with the Chinese-owned company, which it had taken to court for pollution and flouting proper waste management regulations. Golden Lead will be required to pay a bond of $25,000, take immediate measures to treat its wastewater, and pay for testing of already contaminated water. Golden Lead has also been ordered to remove the wastewater pipes going to sea, cooperate on ecological assessment, and pay for water testing and work on correcting the damage already done.
What they could do now, in the absence of wastewater treatment plant, is to ensure that all their wastewater is collected to wastewater treatment facility, which is somewhere in Kotu, several kilometers from their location. They were doing that, but along the way, I want to believe that they realized the cost implications and it's not sustainable. So instead of, asking for advice on the next course of action or to undertake some kind of financial expenses to implement certain strategies to ensure that their wastewater is treated before it's discharged, they discreetly connect a pipe that discharges wastewater from their plant into the ozone. And this was discovered by the community who are within the site, and then it was reported to us. Then we took actions rather.
Chinese fishing operations especially have been accused of double standards as China improves sustainability provisions in its own domestic legislation while continuing to defy laws in Africa. Janet Chapia, KTN News.
That story from Gambia takes us to a very short break, but we'll be right back with much more, including, actually, if you're a music lover, stay tuned for something here, because we have a story of Johnny Clegg, well known as the White Zulu, because his final world tour is currently underway. You don't want to miss that. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll take you to France, where researchers are experimenting with a wine stored below the sea could be the secret to longer life.
This is KTN News.
Corruption is a cancer in our society. Corruption is choking development in our country. This is not because of lack of laws. It is not because of lack of institutions, but it is because of lack of the will to be able to enforce the laws and create a proper system in our country.
Muda haujui ngoja. Waliomba muda wakapewa masaa 8760. Muda umeanza kuyoyoma. Tayari matokeo ya mtihani yameanza kuonekana. Wakiwa bado wanafuta chozi waliopoteza kwenye mchujo, sura mpya zimejitokeza katika ulingo wa siasa. Je, ni adhabu za mpiga kura kwa muda uliopotezwa bila matunda? Je, serikali ina uwezo wa kumshawishi mwananchi kuwapa nafasi nyingine?
Nchi iko na hasira zaidi na hawa watu na hao hawelewi.
Na je, upinzani una lolote jipya kwa mwananchi? Nasa. Pata majibu kwenye Dira ya Wiki, ambapo tunakupa ufahamu kwa mduara.
The countdown is on. And the prize is grand. 2.25 million votes up for grabs. Just who will carry the day? This Monday, live on Kivumbi 2017, Nairobi gubernatorial candidates go head-to-head. Miguna Miguna, Peter Kenneth, Mike Mbovi Sonko against the incumbent Evans Odhiambo Kidero, all on one podium, moderated by Joe Ageo, only on KTN News, Kenya's election headquarters, where you get the whole story, in association with Daystar University.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, this is the Worldview on KTN News. Now, a recap of our top story. The High Court is this morning set to start hearing a case filed by the National Super Alliance, that is NASA, seeking cancellation of the ballot paper printing tender awarded to Dubai-based printing firm Al Hurray. Now, the case will be heard by a 3-judge bench, and they were appointed by Chief Justice David Maraga last Friday after the file was forwarded to him by Justice George Odunga of the High Court. Welcome back to the program once again. Now, the first WHO Africa Health Forum, putting people first, the road to universal health coverage in Africa, opens in Rwanda. Now, the event aims to highlight the challenges and opportunities to improve health services across the continent. Trixie Ngando is up next with that report.
The World Health Organization has called on African countries to act now to safeguard youth health by creating youth-friendly health services and encouraging healthy lifestyles.
As we are all aware, putting in place mechanisms promoting and securing the holistic well-being of our youth is vital if we want them to fulfill their potential and see them grow into thriving members of society and future leaders. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, the health of all Rwandans is a priority to us all. For the past years, Rwandan health initiatives have been building on the milestones achieved over the years, thanks to the government's commitment to fulfill key health targets, such as the strengthening of universal health coverage, currently nearing 85% of the population.
According to WHO, Africa is the only region in the world where the population as a whole is getting younger. People under the age of 18 make up 50% of the population of 15 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. However, HIV has disproportionately affected African children and adolescents. During the 30 years of the global HIV epidemic, around 17 million children have lost one or both parents due to AIDS. 90% of these children live in sub-Saharan Africa.
We need better financing for health in Africa, and we need to be more efficient with allocating the resources that already are in place and with disbursing them and using them, targeting them for equity, ensuring that we use data to know who is being left behind, and we make policy decisions and support governments to implement programs that cover those gaps.
In addition, the growth of non-communicable diseases in Africa has seen a rise in NCD-related deaths of 27% over the last 10 years. If this growth continues, there will be an obvious knock-on effect on the health of young people in Africa. The first WHO Africa Health Forum on Tuesday kicked off to explore Africa's health care priorities and challenges and find new ways to achieve better health care overall. The two-day forum, hosted by WHO's Regional Office for Africa, is organized under the theme Putting People First, the road to universal health coverage in Africa. Countries outside Africa can be good partners to African countries in the health sector, while African countries also have good experience to share with countries outside Africa.
Now, still on that story, our Kigali-based reporter Eugene Anangwe now joins us live from Kigali, Rwanda, with more details. Now, Eugene, perhaps can you take us through on some of the recommendations that were made today?
Yes, good morning. Indeed, something that was very interesting that also came out of this forum, apart from what Trixie Ngando just said there, is that there is a fact that health experts who are meeting here in Kigali were considering the state of global preparedness against diseases amidst concerns that actually only a third of the world's countries are actually prepared to be able to respond to public health emergencies. When I say this, I actually remember that we had an impact of Ebola outbreak in 2014, which left behind, major destruction and affected African countries, that is Guinea and its neighbors, Liberia and Sierra Leone. So what this expert meeting here were trying to also look into was how ready is the world and also Africa specifically to tackle, health emergencies of the magnitude of Ebola that took place in 2014. And so they looked into the issues of trying to look at, reporting any cases as soon as possible, doing diagnostic tests, and of course also implementing preventive measures, which was also advised by the participants who are here. One thing that is also interesting, Yusuf, before I let you go, is that at least 15 African countries have actually been conducting joint external evaluation of their centers for disease control. Here, they put up systems and they call on experts from the World Health Organization to come and try check whether their preventive measures and the things that they're put in place do work in case they were to face a health emergency. And so around 11 more are scheduled. This is what was said in this particular meeting, and one of them is Nigeria, which did conduct a joint external evaluation and it found that there was low response in disease response whenever an emergency like this happens. So, Yusuf, what remains to be seen is how ready is Africa, to tackle any health emergency if it were to occur in the case that we saw in 2014 during the Ebola outbreak, Yusuf.
Many thanks, Eugene, for that comprehensive update. That was our reporter Eugene Anangwe coming to us all the way from Kigali, Rwanda, where the first WHO Africa Health Forum is underway. And their motto this year is putting people first, the road to universal health coverage in Africa. And as I've earlier promised you in studio, I'm now with Dr. Mercy Korira, our in-house health specialist. Good morning, Dr. Mercy.
Good morning, Yusuf.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, now perhaps before we even talk about today's CBA in Kenya, perhaps we can turn our focus to the WHO forum that is currently underway in Kigali. There are a lot of people who are looking at this, and they're saying Africa has had all sorts of problems. We've had Ebola, in West Africa, there are measles, cholera outbreaks here and there. Africa is almost synonymous with poor health. Perhaps do you think this kind of forum is the right direction?
I think it was high time we had such a forum, and hosting it in Kigali was actually very opportune because, Kigali has 95% health coverage for its citizens, where there's a mandatory, statutory, people are mandated to be in one form of health insurance or another so that they are guaranteed of having a health coverage. So having it in Kigali where they have 95%, which is quite a remarkable achievement for such a country, is opportune. And the topic of having a health coverage for all, universal health care is not just about having the facilities there. It also addresses access to that quality of healthcare. The people seeking healthcare able to finance their own healthcare without having to, to incur catastrophic expenditure. So it's actually a high time we have such a forum in Africa because Africa is the one that bears the greatest burden of ill health in the world.
Dr. Mercy, perhaps from what you've said, it seems like Rwanda is way ahead than Kenya when it comes to the universal, health for everyone. And of course, we are in a campaign period. Politicians have been promising left, right, and center on a better health for Kenyans. Do you think Rwanda is now should be an example for not just Kenya but the Africa at large?
Most definitely. Rwanda is an example. Kenya, our insurance coverage is at 20%, where
it is dismal compared to Rwanda.
1 in 5 Kenyans are covered, and the biggest cover is NHIF. But if you look at what NHIF can guarantee you, it's not really the best attainable quality of healthcare as guaranteed by the Constitution. So we still have a long way to go, and this being, it's been actually a year where a lot of discussions on health have been ongoing. We had the 100-day doctor strike. We are currently in a nurses strike. It's high time that the politicians, who are the policymakers at the end of the day, they're the ones who pass bills in Parliament, should discuss health and have it as a key manifesto agenda. And it's good that the Jubilee manifesto, the NASA manifesto have all addressed health in one way or another.
I hope they're listening to you, Dr. Marcy. And of course, we're going to talk about, and of course, we're going to talk about the CBA that was signed today between the KMPD and the government. And of course, our viewers should stay tuned for that. But for now, after nearly 4 decades of foot-stomping music that challenged South Africa's apartheid regime and promoted racial reconciliation, Johnny Clegg, aka the White Zulu, is heading on his final tour. On Saturday, Clegg will start his global farewell tour with a concert in Cape Town before playing other South Africa venues and then on to London, France, Dubai, the United States, as well as Canada. Now, the 64-year-old, who is famed for his multi-ethnic collaborations, says the decision to bring down the curtain on live performing came after he was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. Here's Lilian Rodera with that story.
It is a journey that saw him endure harassment from apartheid police and a white minority rule when he was targeted for playing with black musicians. In contrast, his music and activism attracted a worldwide fan base that packed venues such as the Royal Albert Hall in London and across France, where he remains a huge national star. Clegg's fascination with Zulu dance and melodies began in the dingy blacks-only migrant workers' hostels in Johannesburg in the 1960s, where he sneaked in to join traditional dancers. He secretly rehearsed with dance troupe, though his presence as a white person was outlawed by apartheid.
Yeah, I was always a bridge for white people into the possibility of connecting with, you know, another culture, not in an academic way, but in a sensuous engagement and mode of sharing and joy and just getting that connection.
He credits the 1982 song Scatterlings of Africa as a tune that catapulted him and his band to stardom, as it topped charts in France and England.
Our record company, it said, you know, we think you'll sell about 15,000 units, you know, you're an alternative artist, we speak French, you're singing in English and Zulu, you know, it's not easy, but you've got a good show. And, you know, through the show, we'll sell albums. But we think about... And my manager said, I'm sure we could make 50,000 albums. And we all said, we'll see, you know. Anyway, we sold 1.3 million albums of the first album.
When the song Asimbo Nanga, Asimbo Nanga, Asimbo Nango Mandela China, a Zulu for We Have Not Seen Him was released in 1987. It was banned by the South African authorities. The song paid tribute to Nelson Mandela, then in jail, and was outlawed because any reference to the anti-apartheid leader was illegal. Today, the song is a popular anthem for modern South Africa.
I'd like to do a final autobiographical show, which basically wraps up my life on stage, audiovisual, photographs, history of my life, and Juluka, Savuka, Johnny Clegg, all of the whole journey.
Clegg's cross-cultural work led to his arrest on several occasions for contravening race segregation laws, while his concerts were often halted by police. The British-born artist, who arrived in South Africa as a 7-year-old boy, stressed that his defiance of racial laws and interest in Zulu culture was not motivated by politics.
The idea really is that I'm fit and strong. I'd like to be able to present just a final farewell while I am still capable of doing it.
The trained anthropologist who used to lecture at Johannesburg's Wits University is writing his autobiography and said he will still make music but will no longer perform in public. Lilian Odera, KTN News.
Many thanks, Lillian, for that. I'm sure Lillian is a big fan of Johnny Clegg. And if you are in those venues, that is South Africa, London, France, Dubai, make sure you get a ticket for that show because this is his final public tour. That is by Johnny Clegg, a.k.a. or well known as the White Zulu. It's now time to look at